appreciate a little help.
MJ, you see, Harry, like all great men, knows that actions speak louder than words.
Huh. Is that so? In that case...
How you doing? Hey, at least let me enjoy it for a minute.
Well, Spider-Man has evolved in many different ways. See, originally I started writing him 1,000,000 years ago, but since then, I can't even count how many other writers have written the stories, how many other artists have drawn them. Now, as you can imagine, every time a new writer takes over the series, he will put his imprimatur on it. He'll give it his style. The artist will always give it their style. So over the years, he's changed slightly, but he's never deviated from the basic concept that he has to be a realistic, believable, empathetic, heroic character.
When we knew we were doing Spider-Man as a CG animated show, we were so excited because there were so many opportunities artistically to do something that had never been done before.
Adu's enthusiasm is very infectious. He has believed 1,000% in this project and has said from the very beginning, you guys aren't going to believe how it's going to look. And it's just fantastic, and we've done this, and the technology is unbelievable. And, you know, as an actor, you nod and you go, all right, can't wait to see it.
I'm not going back to the gulag.
Don't worry, I've got other plans.
You've changed, Spider-Man.
I love the artwork, I love the acting, I love all the subtle things, the way the body language, the way the characters react when they're being spoken to, the way they speak. It's just, to me, everything that an adventure animated series should be.
Never underestimate the superhero. Oops. That never happens.
Prior to Spider-Man, I actually had 2 other series that were also computer animated. Shows like Starship Troopers and Heavy Gear. Starship Troopers was a 40-episode series, did very, very well. It was actually nominated for an Emmy. It was a very realistic space drama set in far-flung galaxies where we fought bugs and people had great adventures. So, having worked in CG before, we knew we wanted to do something fresh, something different. And for us, trying to figure out what exactly that was going to be was a really dynamic process. We wanted something that would be very pleasing to the eye. We wanted something that was very colorful, that had opportunities for lighting that traditional 2D animation did not permit. We found that the closer we got to realism, the creepier the characters got. Sort of like stuffed, flayed people or marionettes, you know, Thunderbirds Are Go. And the closer we got to perfecting it, the more off it felt. So it was a very natural choice to say, let's go somewhere else. Let's make a choice that's very graphic. Our natural first choice was right in front of us. We've been looking at comic books, John Romita Jr.'s work, John Romita Sr., McFarlane. A number of great artists have supported the Spider-Man stories over the years, and for us, one of the first steps was just to put all that stuff in front of us and see what we reacted well to, see what we liked. For example, Todd McFarlane's design for the spider webs. Beautiful. I love that sort of knotted spaghetti look, and we tried to emulate that as we made choices for our series. Some of the work that Mark Bagley did with the youthful qualities of the character of Peter Parker, that gangly 17-year-old body, and immediately we knew that was a direction that we wanted to follow through on. We had a lot of good source material from the comics, and we wanted to build on that.
I must say I was a little concerned about it. I didn't have great expectations for cartoons on TV, and most of them just aren't that interesting. They're kind of two-dimensional. They're sort of cheaply produced, and so, you know, I auditioned because it's a job, but I had no idea that the technical elements would be of such a high level.
People have done versions of our characters that weren't too true to the original comic book perception of the characters. And one of the reasons was because we had no control. We just sort of gave it to somebody who bought the license fee. We were unsophisticated in such matters, and they did jobs that were less than admirable as far as the interpretation of our characters. We are so fortunate now. I really have made it a point not to butt in as long as we have the best possible people doing the project. I had such confidence in the people who were working on the show, and after seeing the show, they more than exceeded my confidence.
Spider-Man swallowed the bait.
Sucked in the whole hero package like it was clean air, just like you predicted, Kingpin.
Poor little Spider-Man can't get no respect. What a rube.
When they were working on the feature film Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi film, we got the contract at Sony to develop an animated TV series as well. So I began working at that point with one of the creative executives at Sony. We started gathering art and reference, and at that point they brought in Brian Michael Bendis, who is a writer who works on Ultimate Spider-Man. Really nice guy, and he's really, really proud of what we've accomplished on the series. He did a pilot script. This pilot script was very edgy, it was very different, it was very much based on the work that he had been doing in his Marvel comic. And with that script and with some of the art that I and my team were starting to develop, we shopped the show around, and MTV said, this is great, this is what we want. So in the fall of 2001, we shook hands with MTV and began in earnest.
Looking a little too good there, Peter.
After we made the decision to make it a computer animated show, we needed to find out which studio could work with us on the show. There are a number of studios all over the world that were very interested. Spider-Man's a very popular character, and we set up basically an open audition for studios. We wanted to know that the studio had the aesthetic ability and the technical ability to pull off what we wanted in our art direction. What we were looking for was this toon-styled line where the exterior perimeter of the character would have a line around it, and that line needed to be something that we as storytellers could control very carefully. We needed to be able to control the color of the line, we needed to control the line thickness, the line weight, so that as a character's hand came closer to camera or farther away, for example, it would not clot up and just become the line itself. It needed to look like an illustration. And that may sound easy, but it was actually a very difficult technological achievement to pull that off. And the studio that won the contract, hands down, was Mainframe, which works out of Vancouver, Canada. Mainframe is famous for doing Reboot, which was one of the first computer animated shows that ever was on the air. They have an extraordinary team up there. They have people who have been doing keyframe animation for CG for almost 10 years, and they've really protected their talent pool. And the subtlety of the performance and acting that we have in our series is in many ways a tribute to the skill of those animators that are working on the series up there.
And here I thought you weren't paying attention.
No, I pay plenty of attention.
You do?
So simultaneous to working with Mainframe on initial technological research and development issues, we started working on scripts and stories. We started to develop premises that were acceptable to our client MTV, as well as to Marvel, as well as to Sony. We've hired writers and story editors who would polish these stories and develop them up. And as those stories started to define themselves, we were able to do more illustrations to support those stories. Who are these extra characters? Who's this bad guy? What does Electro look like? What can we do that is unlike anything that has been done before?
I've been reading a lot of Spider-Man comics since I've done this, because I have to talk about it all the time, you see. And it's great. It's a great dynamic to have a teenage character that's a superhero.
No, that's okay. Maybe you'd like to sit behind the desk. Just let me know.
I certainly have nothing better to do in my own office.
Sorry, Mr. Jamerson, I've got to go.
Parker, get back here. I'm not done throwing you out.
The writing process for a show like Spider-Man is very dynamic. There's a number of people that are involved. Primarily, our executive producer, Morgan Gendell.
They brought me in. I read a few of the scripts. I thought, yeah, I could have fun doing this. I hadn't been involved with animation before, but I came in and basically looked at a few of the scripts that had already been written, saw what was needed, started some new stories in development, and got things rocking and rolling.
Morgan has this extraordinary experience in television. He'd come off of shows like Law and Order, Nash Bridges, VIP, and he'd actually never done animation before. So for him, it was like a kid in a candy store. Oh, you mean I can do that? You know, I can actually have them fly through the buildings and crash through windows and so forth. This expanded his capacity as a storyteller. So he was thrilled. He had a lot of energy from the very beginning.
One of the first things they said to me was, if you can do it in live action, then don't bother doing it in animation. Meaning, we do things a lot, different isn't quite the word, but you can bend reality a little more than in live action. You don't have to adhere to some of the rules you do in live action.
He would participate with us at not only as a writer, but also he would come to the recordings, and he would join me later in the process to sit through and flip through storyboards and offer constructive comments on how to direct the shows and how to craft the storytelling.
The great thing today, both with Audu, the way he runs things, and using the internet, I would get probably about 15 emails every day with JPEG files showing me rough sketches. Here's 10 rough sketches of possible gadgets. And then I say, well, I like these couple. Then they come back, here they are refined. Then here they are colors. Every step of the way, I really had input. I mean, it's not to take away anything from the creative people who do the creative job, but I at least could make sure when I thought of the story idea, or in conjunction with the writers, when we thought of stories and beat them out into outlines and wrote them as scripts, is this what we were picturing to tell that story?
MJ, deep down inside me, I'm afraid there's a big, boring nothing. I don't know what else I can tell you, except for the coolest secret stuff about me, which I can never share with you. Like this.
We also had to cast. We had to find voice actors who could bring our characters to life. We had over 200 actors audition for the key roles in our pilot episode. There were people from television, from film, from with extraordinary experience, and they were all very excited about the project, and very tough choice.
I did a couple episodes of the Justice League and other series, and I thought it's just a great discipline to use just your vocal inflection to try and make a character work. And so I've been auditioning for all sorts of stuff, done a lot of books on tape, Beverly Cleary's books I do, Henry Huggins and all those, and as Spider-Man came around, I auditioned for it and ended up getting it. I didn't even expect to get it, but it worked out real well.
Who are you, and what have you done with Harry Osborn?
If you keep acting like a jerk, I'm not gonna let you meet her tomorrow night. I thought I'd make dinner for the four of us.
You?
Cook?
Yeah.
Well, as in preparing food for human consumption by means of heat?
Just shut up and be ready at 7.
Neil Patrick Harris is so much fun to work with. He really knew who this character was, and he doesn't need much direction. He'll just sort of reach into himself and he'll give it to you right on the first take.
So then you use the computer, you bring up Jane Perkins' face, you bring up Silver Sable's face, you merge the two, boom. Jane Perkins is Silver Sable.
Jane Perkins is Silver Sable.
But if she's been masquerading as the mayor's aide, she'd have had plenty of chances to kill him. She's after someone else.
Neil, thank you. You've been wonderful today.
You were really terrific.
Really? I thought that I totally screwed up that college dorm scene.
You'd never know.
I didn't think you'd show. I mean, it meant so much to me, and then I thought, why was I obsessing over whether or not you saw me?
Lisa has this extraordinary subtlety to her performance of MJ that I'm just really a big fan of. It was a very important role to cast. We needed to make sure we had somebody that had extraordinary capacity to control their instrument, in this case their voice, to create performances that would break your heart or thrill you. And at the same time, we needed a voice that was unique. We needed something that was unlike the voices you would typically hear in a television series, especially an animated series. And Lisa, being a singer, has this very personal quality to her voice, and there's no one else quite like her.
Petey, I don't care if you go out with Indy.
How'd you know it's her?
It's written all over your face. I-N-D-Y.
Hey, I broke up with you too. How come you never write on my face?
One of the great challenges to being a voice actor for animation is being in the moment. And the challenge is that you're really in a room with microphones in front of you, often other actors around you, a music stand in front of you with pages of script, and sometimes they're not the same pages that you received the night before and you actually studied and rehearsed. You're basically kind of reading live off of the page, but you've got to be able to imagine that you are falling off the side of a building, that you are swinging through the city, that you are about to be kissed by a man in a spandex suit who's dangling upside down from the side of a building. And that requires a lot of imagination. And then that translation process to actually make it live through your voice. It's a rare talent.
Hey, guys.
Hey, MJ.
Wow, is that Harry Osborn awake before 6 p.m.?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Sigma party tonight. You there?
There's a party?
Yeah, I'm there. You?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely party deprived.
There's a party?
So then we have a radio play. This is the tool that allows the storyboard artist to proceed with creating a visual performance that's sometimes up to 2,000 to 2,500 panels that basically defines what the film will be. Anytime there's a change, anytime there's a transition in story, somebody moves, somebody reaches, picks something up, somebody speaks, somebody has a change in their motivation in a performance, it has to be drawn. It has to be created as a blueprint that the animators can then follow faithfully. Harry's bedroom and Peter's very small junior bedroom usually takes about 100 to 120 man days to create a storyboard. We then scan it into the computer and we create what's called an animatic, which is a black and white 2D video of what the whole cartoon will look like when it's finished. And at that point, the animators at Mainframe will take 2 to 3 weeks to kind of work in a very small group of 2 or 3 to sort of rough out the show. Then when they're ready, a larger animation team becomes available to them. Suddenly 10 to 12 people are working for them to take their rough animation and expand it out and give it life and to really kind of breathe a human side into it. There's always room for improvement. This is where we have faith that the people who follow us in our storytelling understand the big picture. They understand our goals for the tone and the mood for the piece. And often you'll find the animators are adding small moments, a blink, a lift of an eyebrow, that are so honest and they're so real that it blows you away when you get the footage back.
As thrilling as it is to see the action and the movement of the characters, it's even more thrilling to me to see the way these characters emote. They're cartoon characters. Somebody is sitting down at a keyboard and making their lips or nose or eyebrows move or whatever, and they do it, they emote. They're funny, they roll their eyes, they're sarcastic, they're sad, they're happy. That is fabulous, to be able to take these computer-generated images and bring them to life.
Don't you remember? You smiled at me, you cared. No one ever cared before.
No, it's not like you think.
You do care for me, don't you, Sally? Don't you?
During the process of animation, we receive work-in-progress tapes, 5 of them, where we have our 2D animatic mixed with a half-finished animation, mixed with a couple of shots that are actually completed or actually finished. And then we will give notes on those as we go and kind of steer the process. So the animation team at Mainframe would have 3 weeks for initial production and an additional 10 weeks for animation. When the animation is finished, it's then delivered back to Sony, where we will do an additional edit. We'll cut about a minute out of it by pulling a frame here, a frame there. What we'll often do is we'll go into other episodes, other shows. We'll pull establishing shots, reaction shots of characters. One of the cool things about the process is because it's in the computer, because it's digital, we're actually able to separate Peter Parker, or Spider-Man, from the background, and so we can take the character level off, put it on a different background, and it looks like an entirely different scene. Coming up from the crouch, that has to go there. So we edit the picture together, we lock it down, and when we have that picture locked to the point where we know that we don't want to change a frame, at that point it's ready for music. We send it to John Digweed, Nick Muir and Will Anderson, who are our composers for the series. They have then about a week, possibly 2 weeks if they're lucky, to score the entire 20 minutes. And it's mostly original stuff, in the sense that it's all original material. Sometimes they'll tap into a theme that was created for a certain character from another episode.
Oh, some of those, remember that shaker rattle stuff we had in the lizard show? Maybe, yeah, some stuff with jungle percussion.
Odd hobby.
So we have a locked picture, we have a score that matches it, we have also sound design, and we have Foley, and we have dialogue. It all comes together on the mix stage. And our process at the mix stage is exactly the same process that you would use in a feature film, where we are making choices about where the music is up, where the sound effects are up, echoing voices, creating special effects for monster voices, and we bring it all together. We kind of put it all to bed. At that point, we then format the show, where we kind of put it into final form, pass it over to the network, and it'll be on the air very soon. It's a very exciting process. The other dynamic to it all is we do have 13 episodes. They're going simultaneously. It's an assembly line. One show starts on week 1. About a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, the next show starts. So while you've got one show commencing storyboards, you've got one that's in mid-storyboard review, you've got one that's going to be in animatic review, you have animation handout that's occurring the same week, and it's a scheduling nightmare to pull all this together so that everybody gets the time they need and that the machine is running smoothly. And vast sums of other people's money are involved, and you've got to get it right. If you do it right, they let you do it again.
Funny thing, when I first began the character, I've been asked so often, how did I feel? Did I ever expect that today there'd be major motion pictures and great television animated series and so forth? All I hoped was that somebody would buy the magazine and I could keep my job and I'd keep getting my salary. And I mean, in a million years, neither I nor anybody at the company could have thought that we'd be doing an interview for a DVD. We didn't know what a DVD was. We didn't have DVs. In fact, the reason my fingers are so stinted, we were always scratching things on the walls of caves in those days.